Hi there, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Hobbies, Crafts, and Collectibles. I'm Duska Cornwell, your host. We are going to be talking to two very talented crafters today. First off, Shanon Strode. She is a woman of uncommon patience with an uncommon craft. You'll see what I mean in a bit. Also, we'll be talking with Lizzy Jakobsson from Arcola, Illinois. She makes some beautiful jewelry out of some very strange objects. You're going to love it, so stay with us. Shanon Strode, thank you for joining us today here on Hobbies, Crafts, and Collectibles. I introduced you as a woman with uncommon patience because I look at some of this tiny tatting work that you do and think of the hours it must have taken to get that look. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing it with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, tatting is not quite as popular, am I right, as like knitting, crocheting. It's along the same vein, but it's an old craft, but only a few of you may be doing it today?
Yes. Around the first part of the 1800s, that's really about the earliest that we see any kind of tatting in the form that it is today. It's related to a lot of the fishery netting type of crafts.
Oh.
And a lot of the fishermen would make fancy knotted gifts for their wives and their girlfriends back home, and they would give them to their ladies when they got back from sea. And so that's kind of how tatting got started, and then they became more decorative. It was originally used a lot for collars for dresses and for the sleeves, and it's kind of progressed from there to you can make jewelry from it, you can make doilies, you can make accents for clothing and things like that. There aren't quite as many people that do it anymore. It is not a lost art.
Not dying either.
It is not dying. It is not a lost art. But there's a few of us that still tat, and we try to spread the word about tatting and get more people involved in it so that we can have more tatters.
Well, it's definitely worth keeping around. It's just beautiful. And now I'm familiar with tatting, like you said, maybe collars or around the edges of a handkerchief or something like that. But you have taken it to a new level here with jewelry. Now, most commonly, would I say that the cotton threads would be the most common form of tatting? Look at this necklace.
Thanks. Most tatting thread is made of cotton, and there are some silk threads that are used, but for the most part, most tatting is made with cotton thread.
It's beautiful. And then you have an example here of one that is definitely not cotton. But what is this thread? This is gorgeous.
This is,
whoops.
It's all right. It is tatted from very fine metal thread.
Here. There. Oh, can we pick it up there? I want to get the best shot. I want our viewers to be able to really see this.
It's very fine thread. It's about 32 gauge wire, and it's very delicate to tat with. Once it's made, it's durable, but in the tatting process, the wire tends to break very easily, so it takes a lot of patience.
Is that why I don't see a lot of it out here on the desk? Wow, that's beautiful. So what's your favorite thing to tat, Shanon?
I like small projects that I can get done quickly.
Say like
because
this, would this be
ornament? Yes, that's a Christmas tree ornament, and that takes about an hour. That takes an hour?
Yes. Wow. It's kind of one of those crafts that if you were to sell it, you would probably never get what your time is worth out of it, maybe?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those hobbies. Yes, you just have to love it and love the way it turns out.
Now, I have a friend who knits, and she can sit, you know, in front of the TV and just knit away and not even look at what she's doing. Have you gotten to that point where you can kind of...
Depending on the pattern. Some patterns are kind of mindless, and you can just tat without having to really think about it because you're just counting the same number of stitches over and over and over again. But there are other patterns that, like the shawl that's over here that I'm starting to work on, this red, white, and purple and blue.
Did you say a shawl?
It is going to be a shawl.
Oh,
but the pattern is very complicated, and I get lost easily. And But so that, yeah, that has been about a month's worth of work.
Wow. Now, you know, it does kind of look good with what I'm wearing. I just want to point out, so you know, when you're done with it. I already have the outfit in place. I can wear this over.
We might be able to arrange that.
Oh, it's just beautiful.
Thanks.
Now, show us a little bit of the tatting process. What is this contraption? I see a few of these sitting on the desk.
That is a tatting shuttle.
Okay.
There are 2 ways to tat. You can tat with a needle, which I don't do. I prefer to tat with a shuttle.
Okay.
It works out, the tatting winds up looking very similar to each other, but I find that the shuttle is more easy for me, is easier for me to do. So you wind your thread onto your shuttles.
Okay.
And there's different types of shuttles. The original shuttles were made with bone or ivory or wood. And then they made wooden shuttles with a removable bobbin, like your sewing machine bobbin, would pop into there, and then you could change your threads more easily that way. But these little plastic clover shuttles are my favorite to use. I've used a bunch of different kinds, but for me these seem to be the most comfortable for my hand, and everyone has their own preferred shuttles, but these are mine.
I see. Now you have, this is a thicker yarn. What would distinguish, see, I might see that in my ignorance call it crocheting or something, but what is the difference between like crocheting, let's say?
With crochet, you need to use a crochet hook, and with knitting, you would need to use your knitting needles.
Okay.
And with tatting, all you need is your shuttle, your yarn, well, this is yarn, or your thread, and you can use a very small crochet hook to make your joins where you're joining this ring and this ring. There's a little picot here, and you can use a shuttle to make your joins a little bit easier. But most of the time the shuttles that I use have this sharp little point on the end, and it works in place of a crochet hook. So
cool.
Less things to carry around.
Well, can you do a little bit of it? It's very micro, so we're going to try to catch it on camera, but it's just fascinating to me.
Yes.
I thought about having you try to teach me on camera, but we all know how that would go. So I'm going to let you do it, and let's see how it works.
All right. With tatting, there are rings, which you see here, and then there are chains that connect the rings. And in order to tat a chain, you have to bring the yarn over your hand and anchor it around your pinky finger.
Okay.
And so that you can keep the tension right. And you make a series of half hitches. You just go underneath your thread and pull tight with your shuttle and slide the half knot down. And then you do the second half of your stitch and slide it down. And that is 1 stitch.
Wow.
And this pattern has 5, and then we make a space for our little decorative picot. And the picots can be as big or as small as your pattern requires, because sometimes they're decorative and sometimes they are there so that you can join more elements too.
Fascinating. So when you talked about patterns, do you come up with the patterns, or is there some place that you can still purchase tatting patterns?
There are a lot of people who make patterns and design patterns, and so there are still new patterns available, but it's kind of fun to find very old patterns too. They're more complicated because they would cut and tie their thread multiple times between different elements, and there are newer, easier tatting techniques that allow us to move from like one round of tatting into the next without having to cut and tie the thread and then hide all the ends.
I'm impressed with the multitasking you're doing there, just talking away, tatting away.
And anyway, there is
Look at that.
one chain.
All while you were watching.
Yep.
That is wonderful. So are you making a lot of Christmas gifts and birthday presents?
Yes, I am working on Christmas tree ornaments, like the little angel that's here. And I have a little snowman.
Oh, cute.
And I make different snowflakes of different colors. And you can string a string of snowflakes together to make garland for your Christmas trees.
Oh, have you done that?
I have.
Oh, I bet it's beautiful.
Yes, and I gave that away as a Christmas present one year. So, so that means I have to make more for myself. So,
I see. Now this is two different things, right?
This is.
I just have to pick this up because it's so cute. I want to see the little head that this goes on. Okay, so is this knitting?
This is a knitted baby cap, and then I decorated the top with a little tatted flower.
I love that.
On the top.
Beautiful. Now, is this going to be for someone special, or should I not be showing this on camera because it's a surprise?
It's all right. Yes, a friend of mine is having a little baby girl, so that is going to be for her little baby.
What a treasure. And these are treasures. You will talk about a family heirloom. Wow. Now you have 3 boys.
I do.
What do they think of your tatting?
They think that they want to learn.
Yeah.
But they don't have the patience yet.
Now you have actually a group of people that you've networked with then that are
Yes.
also tatters. Do you have an organization or a website that you could recommend?
GeorgiaSites.com is a very good site to go to. She has a list of a lot of patterns that are on the public domain that are older, and she also has an online tatting class that they hold classes every week. So if you want to learn, that's a good place to start.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you, first of all, for being willing to come in and to share with us this beautiful craft. I think you're right. It's not dying. It's certainly not lost. And would you recommend that some of the moms out there get their girls started in this?
I think it would be a good thing for anyone to learn, whether it be a young girl or a mother.
Or boys.
Or a boy. There are very
Absolutely.
talented men tatters that are manly men.
Yes. Well, Shanon, thank you so much for coming and for sharing this with us. They're just beautiful.
Thank you so much.
I am pleased to introduce to you Lizzy Jakobsson from Arcola, a native of Charleston, Illinois. Lizzy, thanks for coming. She has a fascinating craft. I've seen a lot of people make jewelry, but this is very unique, very artistic, and so I'm very excited that you brought your pieces in. And not just jewelry, you actually make home decor as well.
I do.
So what are some of the mediums, first of all, that you use? And tell me how you looked at them the first time and said, I know what I'll make of that.
Well, I don't know if I can type out the first time, but, so I'll go in order. I actually started with the glass, and they come from various types of bottles. A lot of it is fashioned from the necks of either beer bottles, wine bottles, assorted vases, that kind of thing. These were actually from a vase.
Okay.
And it actually is a red vase, but after it goes through my kiln, it's darkened quite a bit.
Oh, that is red. I thought maybe it was it was a brown.
It's hard to see that it's red, but and of course this is a ring.
Yeah.
That they mainly go on first and second finger because they are so thick, you know, and bulky with.
Sure.
So I started in the glass. And
so wait, now you tell me about the process here before we jump around. The glass, you've cut the glass, obviously. Yes. You've cut the bottles into sections, but then what do you do with it after that? It's got a very smooth kind of...
Yes, it goes through my kiln. I have a kiln.
Oh, okay.
So I heat the glass to a certain degree, and they call that fire polish when it gets really shiny like that. You take it up to a certain degree. So sometimes I don't want things to go quite that high. For instance, when I make these sun catchers with various parts of the bottles.
Look at this sun catcher. This is so cool.
Or if it's just something that's going to sit on a desk, I don't want it to melt completely. So that's always different. The amount of time or temperature that it goes through is always different depending on what I want it to do. Like for instance, this ring, you know, I want to be able to put my finger in it still. So I can't completely flatten it.
I see.
So I started in glass, and then I did quite a bit with the records. So this is an arm cuff made from a vinyl record album, and the embellishment on it is speaker wire.
Look at that. Here, let's stand it up a little bit. There. Look at that. So this is copper wire, speaker wire. And then this is like a 45 record. You can still see
yes, ma'am. Yeah, and on the inside especially, you can see, and this I heat and cut and melt until I get it the way that I want it.
And every piece has to turn out unique, I'm sure.
It does, and I almost can't do something twice.
Put that on your arm. I want to see what that looks like.
Sometimes I'm unable to replicate when I try. You know, I can't always do that. Now I have this other glass bracelet on right now, but so I would shove this up a a little further if I was to wear it.
I see.
And yes, this is actually
the glass
part of a
bangle.
vase originally, the glass on my wrist.
Okay.
Some others that I do are larger, thicker, and I etch on them. So there's designs.
There's something wrong
really
with this face.
Yes, and so a lot of times I'm limited to, right.
Us big boned farm girls, you know, what'd you say earlier? Corn fed and I don't remember what. We're gonna have to come up with a bigger vase for me, I guess. But
so yeah,
beautiful.
That was just the rim of one.
Right.
Know? And so I keep that for myself because it is a little difficult to get on and off. It's not very large. But so some of the large bracelets that I make are made from the centers of wine bottles. Or other types of bottles, and they're much larger.
Okay.
And I make them wide or thin, mainly wide. I like those, and like I said, I etch on them. And then...
Tell me about the copper. I got to hear,
so
because this is beautiful.
The copper is really what I'm really into right now.
Okay.
And so like what I have on is
let's get a shot of that.
All the copper I use is from copper pipe.
And those are shotgun casings, or what are they? Bullet casings of some sort?
They're 38 special casings, yes.
38
and so these are a result of my father and I target practicing. So this one means a lot to me.
Sure.
So this one is mine.
That's your personal statement.
Yes, this is my personal favorite, for sure. And so I make others that, like this one, and I incorporate some silver chain. Everything I use is either silver chain or hemp or copper. As far as the metal goes.
How do you go about making this? I mean, this is pipe that has been beaten into submission.
Yes, pretty much. And of course, this is a big armband. So I start with cutting the pipe at a length that whatever it is I'm doing. Whether it's a necklace, I want to start at a certain length, or a bracelet a certain length. And so I cut it, of course, and then I flatten it, and all of the texture on it is all done very specific. It may look really random, but it's not.
That's where your artistic license comes in, huh?
Well, I don't know that I have a license, but...
But this is cool because you don't use any electricity. This is brute strength.
I don't work at night. I only work during the day, so I don't have to use any electricity for that. And mind you, of course, the kiln uses electricity with the glass.
Sure.
But with the copper, which is what I'm really into right at the moment, I don't use any power tools with it. So if it has a hole, it's because I've punched a hole in it. You know, with an awl and a sledgehammer. And when I flatten it, I don't run it through a press of any kind. That's me and a sledgehammer and various iron pieces whatever I use to be able to form it around.
Right. Now this is cool. This is where the home decor comes in.
Well, yeah, and this is more of just like a towel rack. And,
sure. You can mount it here and then hang your towel, your rags on it. Yes. That's fun. But I love this beast over here. It is beautiful.
That's kind of a baby of mine. So the tops, actually, a neighbor of mine found, it was grounding wire still attached to the pole. He gave this to me, and so that's what I fashioned for these.
Okay.
These, of course, are grounding wire. This is all copper pipe, and these are copper rivets that were my grandfather's that I used to fasten it together. And again, with the holes, when I deal with the copper, I don't use a drill with the holes using electricity, so I have to hand make the holes.
Sure. Now, so is this in your home then? Do you hang your pots on?
And that was primarily out of necessity, wanting a certain size and not finding a copper pot rack that I could afford. So I thought, well, you know what? I'll just make one.
Sure. The price of copper has really gone up in recent years.
And a lot of the ones that you buy in a store aren't solid copper.
Sure.
A lot of them are either a copper
coated
overlay or they have an overlay over the copper as well. So I like the patina that it develops.
Absolutely.
And of course, all of these, I could dip them in Tarnex or sand them, but
Sure.
I don't want to. I like...
Or coat them so they don't tarnish.
Or coat them so they do not, but I don't do that personally. I really like the look of the tarnish myself.
Right. I agree. I agree. One more piece of jewelry, well, two more actually, that I have to show here. You've done some neat things with silverware, Lizzy. These are amazing. First of all, we've seen these. These have been around, spoon rings.
Yes.
Probably early 1900s, would you say?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, because, and I think, maybe part of it was, sometimes you have a family who has grandma's silverware and you got to split it all up amongst everybody.
Right.
Maybe
yes.
make a piece of jewelry out of it, or Depression era especially, they were finding all kinds of interesting things to make. But I love spoon rings, but never seen this one at all, Lizzy. This is so cool. You wouldn't even know at first glance, but this is a fork.
Yeah.
This is a fork, and her name is Betty.
Yes, I do a lot of these figures, and they have different moods.
Knees.
So this is Praying Betty.
I love that.
And I have a Coy Betty and some various other Bettys. I call them Betty because the first forks that I used the pattern was the Lady Betty pattern. So that's why I named them all Betty.
I see.
Kind of go with that theme. So yes, now I've been doing a lot of these, and I've done a lot of spoon necklaces and bracelets and that kind of thing with various parts of spoons and forks. And then, of course, kind of like this object here, I've started to kind of incorporate all of these different items together.
Yes.
So this is just a wall hanging and kind of a sun catcher with the glass.
That would look so cool.
The bottom of a bottle,
yeah.
the neck of a bottle. You're holding speaker wire, of course. And
a record.
An album.
Yes.
And so I named this Always Watching. Because no matter where you are in the room, it
makes
looks
total sense
as if it's looking back at you.
Absolutely. So this is where, all of your pieces are art, but this literally is a piece of art, and it's all green. That's a big thing right now. People are really saying, what do we already have here in this world that we don't have to put into the landfill, and we can make something beautiful out of it. I love him. And then we showed a little bit of the other sun catcher.
Oh, this one?
Yeah. I love the blue. That would be so pretty.
See, I don't know if you can see it in the light, but can you see the clear one inside?
Yes, you can kind of, yes, it's coming in on,
I
think.
don't know if you'd be able to see it. So this is the bottom of a bottle. This is a neck that's been cut and set inside. That one was clear. So in the dark, you can't really see it, but if you really have good lighting, or if it's hanging in a window, you can really see the white in the center. And then these are, of course, a brown bottleneck slices that I put together to hold it.
So in your years of crafting, what would you say maybe is one of the most unique mediums that you've used?
Unique, like as far as repurposing an item for something
Yes,
different?
exactly.
I'm not sure. Maybe the reason I have a hard time answering that is because I don't really plan them so much, right? So I don't think about what could I use now that hasn't been used this way. Most of the time it's out of necessity or ignorance for me. I wanted a copper pot rack, but I was unable to afford it. So I said, well, I'll just figure out how to make one.
Sure.
And sometimes I don't know what tool is used for this or that. So I just figure out what would work for me.
The bullet casings in your necklace.
Sure.
Special. It's sentimental to you, and it's certainly unique. You're not going to see a lot of those out there. It's fascinating how you've come about with using different materials and made such beautiful things out of them, Lizzy.
Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you so much for bringing them into the studio today and sharing them with our audience. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Hobbies, Crafts, and Collectibles. If you or someone you know has a hobby, craft, or collectible, be sure and contact us and let us know. We'd love to meet you. And remember, if you love it, it's not junk.